everybody. Welcome to Ministry Mondays with Meg. I'm Meg. Hey, so look at this. I got lots of friends today. I've got lots of friends. Right. I need like noisemakers and confetti. I keep saying this, but I actually need to do that, like noisemakers and confetti. That would be so much fun. Not like actual ones, not like
party favors.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Anyway, so welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Ministry Mondays. It's Monday. I'm Meg, and that's probably about all you need to know. This is the show where we talk about all the stuff that you do beyond the pulpit, beyond all the regular worship things that happen in church. So, today I have some of my friends with me to talk about their own thing. But before I forget, I want to actually tell you all about something very important. Add this to stage. So last week, I believe it was Thursday, Rainy Mountain, Kiowa Indian Baptist Church in Southwest Oklahoma burnt down. This is a before picture, and this, folks, unfortunately, is the after picture. Apparently there were some incredibly high winds and caused a power line to go down, and it destroyed the primary church building there. So the outbuildings were saved, thankfully for that, but their church building is gone. So ABHMS friend Ben is deployed staff out there. And so Ben Sullivan let us know about this going on. And so I will put in the, here's you can help us rebuild by going to ABHMS here, but we'll also put this, the link for Rainy Mountain. If you would like to support the rebuild, we'll put that in show notes, and we'll put it in comments and things like that, folks. So, right. So I'll remove those for a second so we can make everybody a little bit bigger. So now on to introductions. I already said I'm Meg. If this is your first time, welcome to the madness. Those who know me know that I have a little bit of ADD. Sometimes it's worse than others. If you've not been here before, where you been? But we're glad you're here now. So let's introduce my friends. I'm going to start. Mary Hamel, would you tell everybody who you are, what you do? Welcome to the show.
Sure. I'm Mary Hamel. I'm the executive minister for American Baptist Churches of Massachusetts, acronym TABCOM. I've been here for 9 years and some change. Before that, I was a American Baptist pastor for 23 years, and was just very grateful for the opportunity to participate in this adventure that we're going to be sharing about today.
Okay. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. Mary's a first timer, but Michael Friday also has a podcast of his own. So I appreciate you joining mine. Would you like to tell everybody who you are?
Yes. Hello, everybody. This is Mondays with Meg, but I am Friday now with Meg. I do have a program that I call Mondays with Friday. I do it most Monday mornings, but I'm glad to be here with Meg on Monday evening. I am the executive minister of the American Baptist Churches of Greater Indianapolis. And one of the things that grabbed me about this trip to the border church was not only because it was a free trip, but because as an immigrant who has always functioned in the United States, very conscious of where I've come from and always functioning in missionary mode, and never having been to Mexico, I thought that there would be some things that would resonate with me And I got more than I bargained for. It was a wonderful weekend with friends, and it was an eye opener for things other than just the border church. I'll probably have an opportunity sometime during the hour to talk about it. But I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Meg, for hosting me.
Yeah. Yeah, we're glad to have you. Up next, Mindi. Mindi, you all should know anyway that Mindi's like, what is it? Is this 3 or 4?
I think this might be the third one I've been
Okay,
on.
because I was trying to figure out if you have been here now more times than Paul or you're even with Paul Schneider.
I think we're even.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I know I did one with Paul for Hope Punk Theology.
Yep.
I did one by myself as an author, and then this one.
Yeah. So even with Paul, that means, Paul's got to go again because Paul likes to show more than anybody else. So if you're
Y'all are
watching,
gonna have to get this. Y'all are gonna have to get the special jackets for the 3-timers.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah, like SNL.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. There we go. There we go. And last but by no means least, Seth, who's also been on the show. I actually, for some reason, I know you were season 2, episode 1, but welcome back.
You're a memorable guy, man.
That's right. Well, hello everybody, and happy St. Patrick's Day to those who enjoy that. You don't see any green up here, but my wristwatch, and here it goes. My pants are green as well. And so no one can pinch me virtually, not today. I am an American Baptist pastor. I serve in a couple different contexts. I call them my gigs. My Sunday morning gig is at First Baptist Church in National City. National City is part of the San Diego area, just south of San Diego, between downtown and the border. And then my Sunday afternoon gig, I actually drive down to the border and participate in what's called the Border Church. And I've been part of that ministry, both ministries, in fact, since 2017. And I've been the lead pastor at First Baptist National City since 2017, but at the Border Church for about 3 years now. And so at both of those, working with refugees, immigrants, folks on the margins. And it's been just a really awesome experience doing those things. And talking about awesome experiences, a couple weeks ago now, these 3 guests and about 4 more came down to the Tijuana, San Diego region. And that's why we're on the show today, I think, to talk about those experiences. So thank you, Meg, for having us. When you said, hey, let's talk about that, I said, yeah, let's get them to talk about that, spread the work. So, yeah, thank you.
So I did a little homework, which I don't always do. And so I read where on the US side that the Friendship Park was closed. Okay, I guess I should back up. Right. So as I understand this is as I understand it, and then you can tell me how wrong I am. As I understand this, there used to be on the Mexico side and then on the US side where folks could meet at Friendship Park. Is that right?
All right. So I'm a little bit of a history buff. So how about a little history? And some of this in the Judson Press book, Selfless, Shameless Pug, right? The Border Church. The book about that's called Church at the Wall, and Judson Press released that a few years ago now. But so back in the day, the Border Church started just as an ad hoc celebration of communion that became a weekly celebration of communion right there at Friendship Park on both sides of the border, where the U.S. and Mexico and the Pacific Ocean meet. Right, they kiss right there, and we were able to, for a long time, have communion there. And when I started in 2017, it had already been going for at least 6 years. And then between the 2011 date and then the 2020 date when Friendship Park was closed, there was a ratcheting effect, making it harder and harder for people to visit Friendship Park on the U.S. side, until finally in February 2020, it was closed. It was closed, and it hasn't reopened. So there's a lot of reasons why, but there's also a lot of advocacy with local officials, state officials, and federal officials to get Friendship Park reopened on the U.S. side, because over half a decade for family and friends and worshipers not to be able to meet through that fence is just way too long. It's inexcusable, honestly. So on the U.S. side, I wasn't able to meet through the fence and have a pinky kiss, like we used to call it, with our friends here. But I was there on the U.S. side at a place called Whiskey 8, which is an open air detention site about 3 miles east of where they were, and right up against the wall as well. And so we, every Sunday, we have a call in, and, you know, on a video call on WhatsApp, which is a messaging app. And we say hello, and we, you know, check in with our friends, Pastor Guillermo and others on the Mexico side. They check in with us, and then we pray together. But because tech at the border doesn't always function the way it does elsewhere because of different signals and all kinds of stuff, that's all we can do for our connection. But it's something. But we want to get back on site at Friendship Park to do it all together.
Wow. So why now? Why invite folks to go out, to come and see what's going on?
That's a great question. I could answer that 2 ways. I'm going to answer the real way. The real way is I'm leaving. I'm leaving the Border Church.
Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. But I know one thing that looks like is I want to set it up for success, right? And so now that the word's out, I just spilled the beans. It's not going to be right away, but there's a transition in process, and I think that there's a sense in which, you know what, I don't know who's coming next. It's a very ecumenical thing, interdenominational, and so even though I have some plans, those are definitely not public yet, I know that I need to do my due diligence with my American Baptist colleagues. And part of that is to say, come here, see what God's doing at the border. So that's number one. That's like the real reason. That's the one I probably shouldn't have even said. Number 2 is I applied for a grant. So the American Baptist Foundation, thank you. They gave us a Palmer grant, and that Palmer grant allowed for people to visit, like Michael said, to visit for free. So thank you, Palmer Grant. Thank you, American Baptist Foundation. You guys made this happen, and we're very grateful.
So I guess I'll go with Mary. Mary, was this your first trip as well? Because I know it was Mindy's first trip. Was it also yours?
It was also my first trip.
Okay.
I had never been over the border in Mexico, and was just super excited about the opportunity to, you know, experience a little taste of the culture and some of the really amazing ministries that are happening along the border, and wonderful things that the people of God are doing in the midst of a lot of uncertainty and very limited resources. But wonderful stuff is happening.
What? So I've never been to Mexico. I'll just say that. So what was the expectation? Did you have one? Like going in, you're coming, given our current administration and everything going on there. Did you just come in? Did you come in like with anxiety and what was it like?
Well, for me, I don't know why. I didn't really feel any anxiety. I guess because I knew that we had folks like Guillermo and Seth down there kind of keeping us where we needed to be. You know, the anxiety was more just the knowledge that we were going to be seeing and experiencing some things that were hard. But knowing that we needed that experience, that I'll speak for myself, that I needed that experience to understand the issues and the opportunities that are there at the border.
Michael, so as an immigrant, then leaving your country that you've called home for what, over 20 years now? Like, so this is me projecting, I guess. Like, I would imagine like that was a whole even different experience for you. I mean, I don't know. I would have loved to have been there, just to like fly on the wall, just to watch and pray and yeah. Talk a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, I guess from the debriefing we had on Sunday evening and then our chats throughout the whole time, I don't think my experiences, the way I experienced the visit, was any different from any of the other folks who were born in America, with the exception of Doug, who is with us this evening. But I saw a piece of symbolism that I hadn't seen before. One of those pictures you showed, like about 3 or 4 pictures back, I took that photo of us crossing the border back into America, that one. And, we just drove into Mexico. And as we were coming back, we didn't just drive back into America. And I'm seeing some powerful symbolism in there about who really is free. I'll just leave that there. We just drove freely into Mexico, but we had to go through all sorts of contortions to come into America. And one of the more significant experiences was when we visited an agency for deported veterans, and we met Rocky, who left Mexico at age 6 months and was deported 8 years ago. And Rocky seems to be in his 70s, and he's a Vietnam vet. And there's a lot, that we know about Rocky through other ABHMS videos and so on. But one of the things that Rocky said that stayed with me was that being a deportee back in Mexico, which was never his home, 6 months, he never ever returned after leaving age 6 months. He said that he's enjoying, I'm not quoting him, but the quality of life he is living in Mexico. Now, he's not rich. He has property back in America that he can't access. Rocky is at peace. I think it has to do with his faith. I think it has to do with the way, the impactful ways in which the border church does church, but it has to do with mindset, and it has to do with the fact that places that other people would like to call hellholes or other kinds of holes do have spaces where the grace of God can be found. And that was important for me to see, and that is important for me to think of as I think about people who are at this very moment being deported, some back to the places where they were born, some to places where they weren't even born, never ever saw in their lives. And those are the kinds of, the kinds of broader thoughts that come to me from this experience.
I think that's that gives you a lot to think about, especially when you're talking about that where we talk about welcoming the stranger, and here it is, you're more or less, you're welcomed into Mexico as strangers from another country, but then to come back into your own country, not so much. Wow.
Can I also just reiterate what Michael was saying?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know. They are deporting. The U.S. federal government, are deporting U.S. veterans, people who by joining our armed forces, said, I am willing to die for this nation, they are kicking those people out after being honorably discharged. And that is not honorable.
And if I can interject, one of the
Yes.
things that really struck me was hearing that, places like the Deported Veterans Resource Center, they're helping veterans get access their benefits, but that the U.S. military and ICE don't talk to each other. And so the U.S. military sees these men as veterans who have served the country. And so therefore they can come back to the U.S. once they've died and be buried, with honors in a national cemetery. So you can cross back as a U.S. veteran who's been deported in a body bag. Think about that. That's what we allow. Not to come back when you're alive, but once you have passed. That to me it's not only not honorable, it's immoral. Is absolutely immoral what we have done to these people who have served our country.
Cheer, go serve our country, be willing to lay down your life. And then we deport you. Like you said, what, 6 months old to a place you left when you were 6 months old. And wow. But yeah, and you can come back when you're dead. Okay. What is there nothing that can be done?
About that particular issue, there's you can talk to your congressperson, right? Because there is some legislation that's in the House. I'll look up the bill name and number, but yeah, there's legislation. But in terms of the law enforcement mechanisms, those are in place. The ICE, Border Patrol, they don't have a whole lot of discretion not to enforce.
Right.
And even if they did, I don't know they'd use it. But it is the law that they deport certain kinds of people if they get into trouble with the law, even if they've paid their debts to society, right? And a lot of the reason that people are going to prison is because of untreated mental health issues. And then instead of getting them into some sort of psychiatric care, they kick them out to a place they maybe didn't know ever. Like Rocky, our good friend Rocky, he learned Spanish once he got deported. That's insane.
Yeah. Rocky actually, when we were visiting, asked if anyone from Wisconsin. And of course, I raised my hand. And he lived in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. He talked about hockey with me and the Milwaukee Admirals. He knows more about Wisconsin than he did Tijuana. But as Michael said, he seems to be, he's one of those people who has found a purpose and meaning for himself in this and to help other veterans. And I think that's wonderful. And it's the way God is using him where he's at. And that also inspires me to want to help others who have ended up in that situation or to prevent those from being deported. I know Doug, who is not able to be with us, is already wanting to work with those in the Latino community to ensure those who end up in military service that they get their citizenship paperwork done, because what happens is military recruiters will lie or stretch the truth or just say, oh, you can get that taken care of, and it doesn't come to fruition. And so to make sure that they get their path to citizenship while serving completed so that this doesn't, happen to them. Now, given things in the current administration, we don't know how that will happen, but there is some of us were inspired to do something based on Rocky's story and the story of others.
Yeah. And I found the legislation. It's HR, right? HR 4569, HR 4569. And the title of the bill is the Veteran Service and Recognition Act, right? So the Veteran Service and Recognition Act is trying to recognize the fact that these veterans served our nation and probably should be treated as such. More than probably, absolutely should be treated as such.
Okay, I know you said Rocky was deported like 8 years ago. Patty Lawrence had asked, like, how long have we been doing that? How long have they been deporting veterans like this?
since the mid 90s. I don't recall the exact year,
Was
but
1996 was
there it
the
is.
Bill Clinton signed that into law. So it's been happening since 1996.
96. Right, which is a long time. And, you know, who knows, unless Minnie does, because you're really good at your research, Minnie. But, right, he maybe didn't even know that the legislation he was signing would change the legal code to make it so that honorably discharged veterans could be removed from this country. So
Wow.
a good reminder that legislation matters and the wording matters a lot.
Wow. Wow. So Mindy, this was also your first trip, right?
Yes. I had
Okay.
been to Tecate before, which is about an hour west east, but I hadn't been to Tijuana before.
So what was this like for you?
It was pretty powerful. I mean, I was the first to I kind of admitted that my perception of Tijuana was based a little bit on TV shows and movies. And the funny thing is I was at a Latino church yesterday where some of the people there were like, "Oh, was Tijuana safe?" Like, there's a stereotype even among people in from Mexico about Tijuana. And Tijuana is just like any other city. There's, you know, places you don't want to walk around at night, and then there's beautiful touristy places, and then there's, you know, it's a big city of about 3 million people. So it's got different areas. I was pretty I really loved learning more about the history and culture of Tijuana and just remembering, and you know this, we all learned this in elementary school, or most of us did, you know, this was California was its own, like California was its own republic, and, you know, the Baja area was, you know, this was all has a rich history. It's not just the United States has always existed in Mexico. I mean, we know that. We know the indigenous peoples who were there before, but that was kind of just neat to see all the variety of history and culture there. But one of the things that struck me, you saw that picture of the lighthouse. That's on the that's on the Tijuana side, and there's the park, and there's the gathering space, and there's the garden. And I don't know if you have the picture of the security tower, what the U.S. side looks like, where the garden's been ripped out and walls have been put up. And I really, you know, going to what Michael said about coming back to the U.S., I really wanted to correct myself. I had this feeling like, gee, it feels like we live in a police state. And I wanted to say, no, that's not true. But then we just, as we're hearing stories just of this last week of people being deported, all the stories we're hearing in the news, you know, it really is like, why are we like this? Why are we like this? In my mind, it does not jive with my experience of being in Mexico. Both times I was there 10 years ago in Tecate and here. It does not jive with the experience of the people. And it just seems, it really struck me. The other thing that struck me is because I did ask Scott when we were driving around, oh, what is this? Because I saw military people, and he's like, oh, that's the Mexican military police. And it's a reminder that the militarization of police is happening across the world and has happened in the United States since 9/11. But as we increase military presence along the border, the Mexican police are increasing their military presence too. So, but it was just very, very much struck me because I had read Seth's book and I knew about the lighthouse and the security tower, but then you see it and it's just, you look at the U.S. side and it's ripped up. The garden is ripped up. It's just bare dirt. There's 2 walls. The mesh is now like 4. There's no way to stick a pinky through now, where you could before. And it doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, I'm glad that you all were able to go and have this experience, and then come back and share it for the rest of us who desperately need to hear it. Somebody talk a little bit about like what's worship like at the border church? What do you experience there? Mary?
Do you see me turn my mic off? I mean, to me, that was the ultimate experience. We saw and did so many amazing things, but to have the opportunity to be part of that worship experience and Mindi was the preacher with Doug doing translation, and a beautiful and fitting interpretation of the lectionary text. And I was privileged to have Guillermo ask me to come forward and share communion. And it's going to be one of my most significant memories of being in ministry of my entire life.
Wow.
I just felt an overwhelming sense of the power of that moment, and standing there in front of such a diverse group of people, and inviting us all to the table together. It was just an amazing moment.
Wow. It gave me goosebumps. Hearing you talk. Wow.
It was totally amazing. I felt so privileged.
I'm so glad you had.
As somebody who comes from the Caribbean, where I've experienced many forms of outdoor worship, even when you're indoors. There are buildings either without walls or with wide open windows or with just a zinc galvanized roof, no ceiling, and so on. And then having lived in America for 2 decades with all the HVAC and enclosures and so on, every time I'm about to talk about the border church, what is about to come out of my mouth is the church without walls. And there's a sense in which, even though this is a church at a wall or a dual wall, it's really a church without walls, because you're out in the open. It was just interesting to be out in the open air. The sky as your canopy. That's not original. There's some hymn that has that as a line. The sky is your ceiling. There are no boundaries except the ugly, stupid wall. But along the wall there are no boundaries. There were animals in worship. People brought their dogs. There's the ocean free except for the stupid wall jutting into it and distorting its grandeur and all of that. And it was just such I've often wished that I could pastor a congregation that is not encumbered by buildings, because it's more than just the freedom from the mortgage and the maintenance and so on. There's something about this. There's something powerful about being unencumbered. And yet these are people who are encumbered by a stupid wall. A church, an international church, that is separated by a wall. It is two sides of a single church, but yet one church. At a wall, but without walls, without boundaries. There's something boundless about this. And again, that's something that I don't know quite yet what to do with it and how it would work through me. But and more than how it would work through me, there's something I know, there's a nugget in it that I want to share with my region, with churches, while I still have the time. There's something powerful about that. Don't know what it is. Ask me 2 years from now, perhaps.
Okay. Well, when you figure it out, you come back and you tell us all about it. Open invitation there, Michael, to do that. I would love to. And I appreciate that very much, having, also been a pastor like the rest of you, the church without walls, because how many times do we talk about, putting God in a box and see you next week, God? But imagine if we let God out of the box. Same thing for walls. So, wow.
Can I say something about that as well?
Please do.
Yes to all that. And the United States Border Patrol is like our deacons board, right? They're the ones saying, you got to use this space, you can't use that space. And we've all had deacons boards. this one's the worst. Right? And so I think that's an added layer, right? There is this ugly wall, but there's also the people who have put it in place. Right? There are the organizations and the systems that keep that there and keep us from truly expressing the wide open expanse of creation and God's love. And so we live in that tension, in that liminal space, and it's so apparent, like you all experience every Sunday.
And I wanted to say, because I ditto what Mary said. It was one of the most powerful experiences of my life to participate in the border church, and had a moment of panic of what the heck do you preach? And then the lectionary, I'm like, oh, I'll just rely on the lectionary because Pastor Guillermo is Methodist, so I was like, he'll know the lectionary, and it actually was my least favorite lectionary passage, which is Transfiguration, because I'm like, what the heck happened there? But it turned into this beautiful moment of we can't stay on the mountain, because in some sense, as hard as everything was, it was also kind of a mountaintop experience for me, if that makes sense, like just the impact spiritually. But that we take those memories with us, and we take our ancestors with us, and we take, we can't stay there. We have to go forth. But I also wanted to say something about the wall, because you see we're on the Mexico side, and yes, this is a thing of ugliness and harshness and violence. I mean, there's memorials to people who have died there, migrants who have tried to cross, and they've turned it into something beautiful. And for me, I had this moment, and I shared in the reflection when we were on Sunday night, how the cross, that's a symbol of torture. It was Roman, oppression of the people. It was a symbol of everything ugly and violent. And Christ has turned the cross into this, symbol of the greatest act of love for us. And the most powerful moment, I don't know if you have a picture of our picture of that, is when Guillermo invited us during the worship service to put our hands on the wall as the prayer of confession.
Oh, wow.
And to confess where we've gone astray, where we've turned away. And so there's this like communal aspect, especially as a, born United States citizen, of confessing the sin of division and deportation and everything else that we are part of, as, our taxpayer dollars go to this, even if we didn't vote for it, we support this. But yet also Guillermo was inviting us into this individual moment of confession of where we have gone astray. And that was just, to me, one of the most powerful spiritual moments of my life. Like just being able to do that and participate, and to see that, and to see what God is doing, turning our act of violence, our act of division, our act of hate into something beautiful on the border.
And then we've seen in the slides all the pictures of the food. So what I understand is after worship, y'all eat.
And not only after worship, everywhere we went, they fed us.
Oh.
Because, and I was thinking, I actually presented this in my board meeting. There's a passage in Deuteronomy about remembering that you're a wandering Aramean, and you do that after you break the bread. And I felt like we are visiting these churches that were housing migrants, and they were feeding us, or housing domestic violence, Deborah's house housing domestic violence victims, and they're feeding us. And they're feeding us not just, snacks. They are feeding us a meal that is cooked out of love. And the best pozole I ever had. Those are the tamales we had, which were pretty good too, and the chicken soup. But we were fed, and then we also, I'll just put in there, you saw the picture of Michael at Caesar's. We had the Caesar salad was invented in Tijuana. So reminding us of the culture and history there of great food. That's not just the stereotypical Mexican food that we know, which is, there's no stereotypical Mexican food, first of all, because it varies a lot. Mexico's a big country. But that, the sense of hospitality. And I think one of the things that really struck me was just, even in the midst of all the tragedy that some of these people had personally experienced, like Pastor Adriana, who had lost her husband and became the pastor of this church, was just the joy of serving God, the joy of doing what God had called them to do, and the joy of serving food to us, and experiencing that joy of Christ. How many times have you gone to a Baptist potluck and really experienced the joy of Christ? Sometimes you do, but not enough. I think we've kind of gotten away from that a little bit in the U.S. church. That's just my personal experience. And here there was definitely the sense of joy and hospitality. And then after the border church, the meal is served by Casa de Luz, which is a migrant shelter for LGBTQ migrants that come from all over the world. And their chef there teaches them how to cook Baja style, how to cook healthy. And she put us to work. She made us get in the kitchen and chop vegetables and squeeze limes. And it was really good. And then they served food to us.
Sorry, I didn't know that. I'm so glad she made you do that.
Oh, yeah. She put us to work. She's like, they were like, okay, there's onions to be chopped. And she corrected people, or the cilantro. She's like, you did chop that. You got to chop it smaller. And then the limes, she was like, no, you can squeeze more out of the limes with the spoon. I really want to get them a lime press. That's like, if I could buy Casa de Luz anything, it's buy them a lime press to save our thumbs. But yeah, then Casa de Luz serves the meal at the border church and participates in the fellowship. And there's, very much the sense of deep love that people compassion for people, no matter where they come from. That I really felt in every place we went to, in every place we visited.
I wanted to raise that as well as part of the, an observation about the worship. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but our denomination is not homogeneous about practically anything except that Christ is Lord, and that's one of the things we forget. That where I'm going with this is that we're still multifaceted. I was going to say divided, but we're still multifaceted when it comes to how we view LGBTQ issues, and really not issues, but people. LGBTQ people. And I thought that it was very powerful that we weren't serving them in worship, but they were serving us. And I thought to myself, or I am thinking to myself, how much we forfeit, how much how many parts of the body we neglect or we render useless. The body of Christ I'm talking about, which is comprised of many parts, including LGBTQ parts. I think we have a long way to go, and I thought that the border church, its affiliation, its relationship with Casa de Luz was something that teaches us some lessons. But more than that, I was impressed about how this little church, with no buildings, with people who many people who are really only just transient, passing through. What's constant is the pastor on the American side and the pastor on the Mexico side and a few people, but most people are really passing through. One of the pastors that Mindi just mentioned, the female pastor who took over her church when her husband died, she estimates that they have served since COVID, I think she said, about 8,000 people. And I'm wondering if we have any statistics about how many people the border church has ministered to since its inception. But I'm impressed about how many ministries border churches either supporting or connected with. That is really impressive for me as well. And how, though it's a church at the wall, it's a border church at a wall, it doesn't put up walls about whom it will admit and whom it would serve and who is welcome here or not welcome here. I think we have a long, long way to go.
Thank you, Michael. I would love to say a little bit about that. we have not kept good records, and honestly, I'm okay with that. That's part of me. There's part of me that rejoices in the fact that we haven't marked down every name every week in every pew from time immemorial. But at the same time, it's probably in the tens of thousands people who have sat in those chairs, gathered at the wall, hiked through 2 miles of estuary on the U.S. side, all kinds of things, right? And like what you're saying about love and Christ's love specifically being a stronger unifier than the divisions of our nations, I think that's so readily apparent with all the various stripes of people of faith that have been a part of it. One thing that came up when I was talking to Jennifer Sanborn with AB and HNS last week was how even in our own, you said multifaceted, I'm not an executive minister, divided church body, American Baptists, right? We have executive ministers and others from various regions, right? We have the American Baptist Foundation supplying the funds. We have ABHMS that we're on podcast with now and was part of the book being published and have been some of the best grantors and helpers from the American Baptist. And then we even have IM, right? Because Delirious and Moise, our missionaries in Tijuana, were so faithful in showing us what it was like just a few minutes south of the border, not just right at the wall. And so even with us, right, it's on these edges, it's on the margins where God's love can speak the loudest, where the gospel can be displayed the best, No offense to King of Prussia, but maybe it's not there. Maybe it's somewhere in this liminal space.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you and say it's in King of Prussia, but
I think one of the things that just really struck me about the experience, we visited several local churches who had feeding ministries and sheltering ministries with folks from a variety of migrants from a variety of communities. It was actually kind of a surprise for me to discover that it was, that these churches in Tijuana are housing people from the Caribbean and from Russia and from different places that where people had traveled to the border and found themselves stranded there, often with families. And what struck me is several experiences with these churches who have so very little. Pastor Adriana, who I hope I got her name right, shared her testimony about starting to host migrant families and dealing with COVID at the same time. And the first night that they opened up their church and had people sleeping there and not having blankets or food or really anything much to go on, but stepping out in faith and offering what they had for, to be a blessing to people who were, many of them in very desperate circumstances. I hesitate to say this, but it was hard for me not to think of the average American church where when a need is met, there's usually a lot of reasons why, we can't do that. We don't have the resources. We don't have the space. We don't have the permits or whatever. And then, to see how much churches were doing to shelter people, to feed people with so very little. And big dreams, buildings that were just barely being held together. And they're talking about next we're going to build this and we're going to add a room for that. And just the joy of putting everything they had into the ministry that they feel called to do. It was very powerful and an example, I think.
How do they fund this? Like feeding all these people and things like
All
that.
kinds of ways. Seth can probably take that one a little bit better, but we heard a lot of creative stories about how that happens.
Yeah. I mean, everything from people, local folks in the churches and in the community digging deep into their pockets, giving sacrificially to certain kinds of government funds in Mexico, to grants from folks on the U.S. side, donations from folks on the U.S. side. Yeah, it's amazing.
And if I remember correctly, at Pastor Adriana's church, some of the grant funding they had was through U.S. government grant that got cut off, because I remember they said some of the, I think it was USAID money that has now been cut off, but it didn't deter her. They were going to keep doing what they were doing, even if they didn't have that. But it's also a good rallying call for us to say this is helping Baptist ministry in Mexico, and it's being held up right now because of stuff happening in our own government.
Yeah.
Okay, so then if folks wanted to support this ministry, how do we go about that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So the weekend that the executive ministers were out, we visited several ministries. So I would say that the two best ways of approaching it would be to contact me, or to contact Delirious and Moise. But since they're not here to provide their best email address, just contact me.
Okay.
And you can contact me at seth@friendshippark.org, seth@friendshippark.org, or you can just go to borderchurch.org, and there's some contact info there, and you can even donate there. The donations there will go directly to the Border Church, but if there are other ministries that you're interested in funding, you can also just ask, and I can make sure to point you in the
And
right direction.
we'll put all that in the notes and the comments. And
I was going to say, Delirious and Moise also, they're not only on international ministries, but they're there's both Deborah's House, and then one of the ministry for migrants, those are both projects that you can donate to through international ministries, because they said that. So also, if you I can give this to you later, but if you go to the ABC Wisconsin website, I wrote an article, and I had links in that article directly for those things. But Seth is probably also the good point person to talk to. So.
And we'll add all those things to notes.
Yeah. And I did want to say something. Just Delirious and Moise they took us around. They took us to these different shelters. It was great to see not just Seth's connection there, but this connection. And it was a reminder that this is what our global servants do around the world. It's just the connection with the local people, the local churches, and helping connect us to ways that are helping to meet the needs that the local people see. This is the need. This is what we need. And it's not us coming in and telling them, oh, we see this and we need to do that. And that's been the history of our missions. And it's a reminder, and being there with Delirious and Moise, it was a great reminder of the ways we can be connected as American Baptists. And I think in a unique way compared to some other denominations.
Yeah, I have I'm thinking beyond the immediate. Not that the immediate ways in which we could help is not important. It's a kind of what if situation. I don't know how far this video would go, but I'm thinking to myself, so the border is along states, American states that most of which we call the Bible Belt. Here in Indiana, there is a bill right now in the legislature to try to get chaplains into our schools, our middle and high and elementary schools, and immediately our First Amendment comes into the picture. And I'm wondering what if that energy and that kind of objective might have been leveraged by people of faith in the Bible Belt, so that instead of pouring money into building a wall, that money was poured into providing officers, people, border agents. And the church, what if the church had used its influence to say, okay, more people than wall? And what if we treated the wall as both we treated the border as both a legal and a humanitarian thing? So we as the church want, through our senators and congress people who are sitting in pews in church, what if we partnered to be there, to be the presence of Christ, not to allow people in? That's the legal, that's not our forte. I'm just trying to say that some version of the border church. What if powerful church people with powerful senators and powerful congress people who call themselves followers of Jesus, what if they had done something different? Now, it's too late to go back there, but I don't know what kind of ideas for being church differently in other spaces. I don't know what kind of power there is in this silly imagination that I have. So I just leave that there.
No, I think if we could channel all the time and energy that we put in on keeping people out, for good, we could have done a whole lot more than we've done. Okay, so Mindy's done this, Seth's done this, but you're going to do it again. Everybody on the show. Okay, so connections. That's all. That's important. We're Baptist, and I'm originally from the great state of Indiana. I don't want to live there now. Just gonna say that. But I'll come visit every now and then, maybe. And we're all connected in spite of and our differences. But the thing that connects everybody here is the joy question. So, and I feel like I know Mary's answer, but because it's an adorable answer. Anyway, but so the question is, you think about everything you do and what brings you joy, and you may answer that question however you want. What's something that brings you joy?
Is this in general or ministry related?
You may answer that however you want. I'll just say you guys are episode number 80. No one says Jesus. Just saying. No one, they did once, but that was a joke.
Okay. Well, and Jesus does bring me joy, and I feel
En tu corazón.
I have been very blessed. The joy of my life is getting to do a ministry that I love and continue to love. I'm a newlywed with kind of a bonus round in my life in that department, and I also have the world's most adorable grandbaby.
That's the one I was, yeah. And I mean, having seen pictures online, she is an adorable grandbaby. I mean,
it's a tough argument to go against. She's
right.
She's
Which is why most people don't go with Jesus. I mean, they go with their grandkids and their park. And once somebody went, "Can I say silence?" And kind of said it like that. And I said, "Oh, do you have teenagers or something?" "Oh, yes. I do." "Can you tell?" "I can." Anyway, how about you, Michael? Are you ready? What brings you joy?
Oh boy. Family, but also, so I'm cerebral. I'm pretty cerebral. My worship style is contemplative and cerebral, with good music though. But because I'm cerebral, I think what brings me joy is seeing people loving the Lord their God with all their heart, soul, might, and mind. And for that reason, joy is quite a challenge in America these days.
But it's why I still ask the question, is because in the midst of all of this, we still have to have joy. Mindi?
Well, I'm going to say Jesus.
Are you?
And I
From
think,
this point on, I have to say, except for one person.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, thinking in context of the trip, in context of my ministry, in context of my family, in context of being able to use all of my spiritual gifts, it all comes back to God and the joy that I have from what God has given me. I think it's right now I'm in the midst of the world being a dumpster fire. I'm kind of living my best life, which I feel a little guilty about. But that this is, it's more of an Esther for such a time as this. I was just with a committee with the Wisconsin Council of Churches, or writing a statement on religious nationalism. And apparently writing statements like that is one of my gifts, because I'm a writer. And so I wrote something, and like nobody in the committee, they were all like, yeah, this is good. We're going to submit it as is. And because I'm Baptist, it had scripture references in there, because I know all my scriptures. And that gave me some joy, like using my writing gifts, using my gift of understanding scripture, and doing something that's meaningful action. And so that gives me a lot of joy, along with my family and going to hockey games. So.
All right, Seth. You?
A lot of things give me joy. I hope that's okay. I'll name a few.
Yeah.
A few. Well, one, like we've heard already, is my family, right? I think my family. The biggest reason that I'm slowly but surely walking away from day-to-day border ministry is because Sunday afternoons is a very precious time when you have a 5 and 7-year-old. And so it's time to be with them because they are my joy. Also, I think the ministry, the border ministry, border church, has been a great source of pain, of course, but also joy, inviting people in to some of the most profound experiences that, like we've heard today, that they maybe have ever had in their ministry lives or just lives. That's a pretty incredible thing to be a part of. And so there's a lot of joy that I have because of that. So I'd say, as far as what we're talking about right now, those are two big ones.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make my pitch now, because why not?
Go for it.
With Border Church, right? I think there's a sense in which people can be invited and accept that invitation to joy too, right? One thing we didn't talk about a ton today, but is the fact that even despite there's a wall there, there's a lot of joy, right? We talked about that over the meals, right? But even on a Sunday afternoon, when people are gathering at this wall, a wall that's keeping them out of the place they want to call home, or keeping their families away from them, there's this joy. So there's the 4 ways in which people can participate and hopefully have a little bit more joy in their own life. Is prayer. Now you have more content. Having content for your prayer life is good. So pray. Presence. Coming. Showing up yourself. We had a grant to do this. So if you do it yourself, you may not be able to stay at the Marriott, but you may be able to come and participate. So being there, having someone from the border come to you, if that's easier. Besos, right? We have to alliterate because we're Baptist. Besos, right? Giving. There's joy in giving. It's more blessed to give than receive. And then prophetic witness, right? So sharing this love, sharing this gospel, sharing the good news that God's love is bigger than any division. And that the presence of God is in all places, even the places that don't seem very sacred to us. So those are some ways that hopefully people can participate in what's happening at the border, and participate in the border church, and participate in the joy of the Lord. Hopefully.
And I just wanted to add on really quick. I talked with Jenny Pedzinski at International Ministries, and they will provide insurance for groups that want to go. She was very pleased about our experience, and I said I'd like to maybe try to arrange a trip from Wisconsin. And she said, talk to us. We can help with the arrangements. We can get you group insurance, all that kind of stuff. So
that's fantastic.
Yes.
great.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we have contact information for Seth if you want to get a hold of him, donate, things like that. Shout out for his book. We have other authors that are on here, even though they didn't write about the border. You know, Michael's got a book, Mindy's got a book. Mary, have you written a book? If not, Mary needs to write a book, right? You do that in your spare time. But, yeah.
One of my problems with writing a book is
Yes.
not being able to tell the stories that would really make the book interesting. But
Once you retire.
yeah, with a lot of heavily disguised content, maybe.
Yeah. So we'll put links to everybody's books and websites and all that fun stuff. And folks, like if you've got the opportunity to go, I'd encourage you to go. I think that's one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is to leave our own country and experience life in another place. It's I think really just does change your mind about all the assumptions you have are wrong. that's what I'll say. Is all the assumptions we make about these places are wrong. But yeah. Travel,
Yeah, and
go.
you can join 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific every Sunday. I bet there's even a back catalog with Mindi preaching. But yeah, every Sunday from the Mexico side, there's a live stream on Facebook.com/Border Church.
Oh, and I'll see if I can find that, and we'll put that. Yay, that would be great.
Yeah, I did link the one in my my article on our website, but Facebook is deleting videos after 30 days now. So,
I know we're
so it's
switching
gonna
to
go
YouTube,
away.
but yeah,
YouTube's gonna be better for that. But you can see, yeah, I did link to that Sunday in the article on the ABC Wisconsin website.
Well, we'll link it here too. So with the YouTube content and
there's a picture of Seth on the American side while we were at worship. A picture of him, and then there's something on the communion table that looks like a crystal ball. I wish it were.
What is that? I wonder.
What are the pictures that you were streaming earlier? Yeah,
inside is the communion bread inside the crystal ball. So I don't know what that says.
Oh, okay, like a holy orb communion bread. Okay, got it. See, all right. And I'll make sure that I get all of the pictures added so you all can make sure that you see things like Mindy and Michael and they're touching the wall and things like that. So I'm grateful to each and every one of you for your time and for being on the show. And wasn't too bad, right? And grateful for everybody for watching and do what you can to support others and ministries and find that thing that brings you joy and then do it for the glory of the Lord. And we thank everybody for watching.
Thanks for having us.
Can we leave everyone with a pinky kiss?
Yep.